Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to another edition with your favorite College for Free coach. Yes, the College Prep Boss here to share wisdom with our college-bound families on how to go to college for free. But our focus this week is on the FAFSA, and that plays an intricate part in the total process when you're looking at how to get a debt-free education. So come on in, welcome. I'm super excited that you are here. We had awesome first day and second day. So Monday, or the first day of this live week training, we talked about how to prepare for the FAFSA. What are the things you needed to do before the day came so that you were prepared? You guys who are familiar with me, who've been following me for a while, know how I feel about being prepared. So the time to be ready is not the time to get ready. So the first day's training was focused on getting yourself prepared so that you can be in the position of readiness, that which allows you to stay ready. So that's what we covered on the first day. Yesterday, the second day of training, we talked about the process of how to apply. So if you missed those first two sessions, that is okay, because guess what? We recorded it for you. You can go catch the replay. So it's on our YouTube channel. It's on our pages. Just go catch the replay. Don't forget, you're going to need something to write on and something to write with, because you need to be able to take copious notes so that you are prepared. Don't be afraid to go back and watch the replay, even if you're catching the live, because there may be some pointers you missed, some notes you missed. So just go back and do your due diligence to ensure you are prepared. Today, we're going to talk about the CSS profile. So this is a subject not many people talk about. Many families are uninformed about it. They have no clue, but there is a segment of families where this is going to be applicable to them, and they don't know what to do, what it is, why it exists, how it's going to play a role in the whole process, the difference between the CSS profile and the FAFSA. So that is what today is focusing on, and we're going to go ahead, get started. Remember, sharing is caring. So hello, Sarah. Hello. Thanks for dropping us a comment. Everybody drop a comment. Hey, let me know you're here. Yeah, let me know you're here. Also, remember, sharing is caring. So share this with other college-bound families. So of course, because we're talking about the FAFSA and financial aid, right now the focus is primarily on current parents of current high school seniors. But again, I believe in being in a position of readiness. So parents of juniors, you definitely need to be paying attention, especially to what we're going to cover today, because you need to understand this piece and tie this in with day one when I gave those tips for parents of juniors and understanding your EFC, what that means. So we're going to talk about the CSS profile so that you can be more informed, more educated, which allows you to make wiser decisions. Hey, Sean, thanks for coming back. You've definitely been a trailblazer this week, and you've been asking your questions, and we appreciate that. So thank you so much. Don't stop, keep asking. And any other questions you may have, go ahead and drop them in the chat box. Even if you have them later on, you may be watching a replay or something may come up. Just drop it in the comment section, because tomorrow we're going to talk about what to do after you apply. Yes, there are some post-action steps, so we'll talk about that, but then we'll just do a general Q&A. So the goal is to make sure we help as many families be ready come Friday. And maybe tomorrow I'll have some other information to share, because there's some things that's been percolating that we're thinking about doing, and it's just a matter of us just really getting executed. So you'll want to definitely stay tuned for that. One of the things I did mention the other day, the whole FAFSA contest, we want to incentivize families because we want to encourage families to participate, because when you start looking at the stats of completion for the FAFSA, it is low. Because when you look at it from across the nation, let's see if it's going to work with me. So if you look at it across the nation, especially since we've been dealing with this pandemic, 250,000 fewer students applied for FAFSA since the start of the pandemic. We have to change that. You heard me say it both days. No FAFSA, no money. No FAFSA, no money. So we definitely have to make sure we ouch, ooh, ouch. See, that's what happens when you're long and you try to scoot under a desk that's not necessarily made for tall people. Oh, that hurt. Okay, I'm sorry. We have to get more people involved, and we have to get our completion rates up as a country, because the reality is this: when you complete the FAFSA, it increases post-secondary enrollment from 55% to 90%. That is a huge number. Huge number. Every additional $1,000 in financial aid increases post-secondary persistent rates by 4%. So FAFSA is important. I talked about some of the myths yesterday. We have to educate the masses so that we can get past some of these myths that's out there, because they're just untrue. They're untrue, and they're crippling families, and they're limiting funding opportunities. So that's part of the mission and the goal right now, is we're playing our part to help increase the numbers. So we want to incentivize that process by having the contest, and we'll talk more about that. So who's ready to jump into the material and to learn more about the CSS profile? Me. I'm ready, Coach Tameka. Yes, I'm super excited that you're ready. All right, so let's get to it. All right, so what exactly is the CSS profile? All right, so here's a short definition for the CSS profile. It is an application for college financial aid. Now, please understand, this is a different application than the FAFSA. And I'm going to break all that down. But this particular application is used, and it is required by over 200 schools, okay? Over 200 institutions, or about 200 undergraduate institutions, use and require the CSS profile in addition to the FAFSA. So by default, everybody must do the FAFSA. You should do the FAFSA. I put it like that. You should do the FAFSA. It's not required, but it's highly recommended. No FAFSA, no money. No FAFSA, no money. Just keep saying that in your head when you think about it. Now, the CSS profile is something that will be required in addition to the FAFSA if you choose any of those select schools. And I'll talk more about how those schools are pretty much categorized. But it is required. Like I said, X amount of schools use it. It is a more arduous, timely document. It takes more time. It drives deeper into your finances. So it asks for a lot more information. So just understand that. It's the things that don't impact you on the FAFSA can impact financial aid eligibility and qualifications as a result of the FAFSA. I mean, wait a minute. What doesn't hurt you on the FAFSA can hurt you on the CSS profile, because it requires more information, and there are things they take into consideration that can impact your eligibility. All right. So let's just talk a little bit more. So I already told you about the fact that it's long, it's detailed. Another factor you got to understand is that there is a cost associated with it. So I will talk about how you can go about requesting a waiver. I think it's $35. I think that's what the cost still is. So it's about $35 for the application. So you have to pay for it. Whereas the FAFSA, it is free. All right, that piece is free. Now, who are the schools that pretty much require the CSS profile? The schools that require the CSS profile are categorized typically as private institutions. I look at them and really group them as institutions that are more inclined to fund based on need. So they're more of a need-based funded institution versus a merit-based funding institution. And so I talked about that on Monday, saying that there's all kinds of aid. So it doesn't matter what your income bracket is. The FAFSA is important and is necessary if you want your child to get money, because there's different type of aid they can qualify for. You may not qualify for need-based, but you can qualify for merit-based and all those other types of aid the institution may offer. So the CSS profile, if it's a CSS profile school, then they will use this to help determine your aid eligibility. So again, it's typically like your private schools, most private schools, and other institutions who have large endowments. So you can really look at it like your prestigious Ivy League schools, and that includes your traditional Ivies, your regional Ivies, your state Ivies. Many of them require the CSS profile. So if you want to check and see what schools, if the schools on your list are CSS profile schools, you just go to the College Board website. So the College Board owns the CSS profile. So you'll basically go to cssprofile.collegeboard.org. And there's a plethora of information out there, but that's where you can find the school list. So once you understand the CSS profile, how it's used and the purpose of it, you want to do that because you need to make a decision as a parent. Am I willing to one, go through this process, and am I willing to make this level of sacrifice? And I'll explain that a little bit later. This level of sacrifice in our decision-making process. So just keep that in mind. That will be one of your assignments once we finish this process, okay? All right, so let's just talk about some of the things you need to do just to kind of get ready. Just like with the FAFSA, you're going to need some of those same type of documentations. You're going to need some of the same level of documentation you use for the FAFSA for the CSS profile. So of course, you're going to need anything related to any level of income you've received. So tax returns, W-2s, investment statement, records of untaxed income, benefits, assets, and bank statements. Because essentially what they're doing in layman's terms, if anybody's ever participated in any of my financial aid workshops I've done in the past years, you've heard me really talk about this piece. They are basically looking to see where you have liquidable assets that can be applied to your child's education. For example, one of the common examples I like to use with my clients all the time, and I ask the parents, hey, are you willing to make this sacrifice? Because if you're not willing to make the sacrifice, it doesn't make sense to pay the money to go through the rigor of completing the application and everything else that goes with it if it's a sacrifice you're not willing to make. So equity in your home, in this environment we're in, a lot of folks are faring very well with their homes and with their real estate properties, especially if you have other real estate properties. If you have equity in those properties, the CSS profile will view that and look at that. Well, the way the formula and all the information that's compiled, the way schools will look at that is, here's money the parents can actually liquidate and apply to their child's education. So it will be viewed and counted as money you can access and apply to your students' college education. So they will deduct that from the amount of aid they initially identified you will qualify for. Now, this is just kind of part of this is me simplifying what's being done behind the scenes before you get that final financial aid package that says, here's what you qualify for. All these things would have already been decided in the back end. So I'm just kind of simplifying it for you. So if you are not willing to pull out the equity in your home, your real estate properties, then you may want to rethink any CSS profile school on your child's list, because that is a common area that's not used against you on the FAFSA that they will use against you via the CSS profile. So these are the types of things you need to know beforehand before applying for a college, so that way you don't waste money, you don't waste time. Okay? Knowledge is power. Starting early is power. So I hope you all are taking this information and making note of it so that you can move forward in a more informed fashion that allows you to just kind of better maximize your time, your return on investment, etc. All right. So you got to have all those type of documents ready. Of course, you got to provide the basics, your ID and all those things. Now, in terms of setting up an account, you're going to have to set up an account. And if you don't already have one, on the College Board CSS Profile site. So this is another login and password you will need to document in a secure place so that you can access it, because it's now going to be part of your financial aid process if this is a path you have to go down. So you got the FSA ID, you got the FAFSA website, and now you have the CSS profile. So if you don't already have a College Board account, you will need to establish one. Now, that's a pretty simple process. Creating your username and password is really as simple as any other site you have created a login and password for. So that's the easy part. But that is what you're going to do in order to complete the process. You also will go through that same website if you are submitting for fee waivers and anything else. So, simple terms, we'll talk about just, completing the application, submitting it. And of course, you want to do it by the deadline. All right. So I'll come back to some of the steps of the application. I want to hit on a couple of categorical topics first, and then we'll go back to really the step-by-step process. So I mentioned fee waivers earlier. I believe in asking, even if I don't meet the qualifications, hey, because all they can do is tell you no. Excuse me, I'm just saying. So basically, a family with an AGI less than $100,000 can submit for a fee waiver. Also, if the student qualified for an SAT fee waiver, so if they got an SAT fee waiver and qualified for it, they will qualify for a CSS profile fee waiver. And the last qualifier is the student, if the student is an orphan or ward of the court and they're under the age of 24. So this is one of those qualifiers that distinguishes an independent student from a dependent student. So I'm taking you back, I'm tying this all back into what we talked about on Monday as well. So that is one of those qualifiers that separates an independent student from a dependent student. So if you meet any of those three qualifiers, then you qualify for a CSS profile waiver. Okay. Now, just another note, CSS profile for non-custodial parents of undergraduate students is free to submit for non-custodial, or they're free to submit as a non-custodial parent as long as their income, their AGI is under 100,000 as well. So fee waivers are only available for domestic U.S. Citizens, okay? Because there are international students who do apply because there are international opportunities, and we'll talk about that here next. But international students do not qualify to receive fee waivers. All right. So talking about international students, in case anybody internationally is looking, because when you think about the schools, the CSS profile schools on the list, they tend to have a large population of students from other countries. Because you think about your Ivies, your baby Ivies, they have students who come in from other countries. So those international students will also have to complete the CSS profile as part of their application process for that particular institution. So there is typically a aid that's set aside or aid that's available for international students. In order for them to be considered and for them to qualify, the CSS profile must be completed for them to do that. Now, there are some things the student would need to, of course, consent to and agree to, because you think about the fact that they are in another country and they are submitting information to a platform that's housed and located here in the United States. That transference of information, they have to consent to what they call a cross-border transfer of information. So just make sure you are aware of that. If you're not willing to agree to that, then you're not going to be able to complete the CSS profile. And that means you're not going to be able to essentially apply to those type of institutions, because this is a requirement for those schools. All right. So hopefully that information so far is helping everyone. Let's talk about another category that's pretty relevant. And we spoke about this from the FAFSA standpoint. So let's talk about it as it relates to the CSS profile. So I want to now speak to parents who have encountered a divorce, or they are separated during this time. So there's a form that parents have to fill out. So in that case, you can submit for a waiver. It's up to the school to decide whether or not they will accept the waiver, but they want the information of the parents. So in some cases, some colleges want parents, whether they're divorced or whether they are separated, they are still required to submit their information. The biological parents are required to submit their information on the application. So how do you know if the CSS profile is required from both biological parents? You basically have to start looking at the schools, because again, it can vary school to school. So you want to start with the CSS Profile College Board website and just start working your way from there. So clicking on the link and clicking on the school and then going from there. Because again, schools on average, they want the custodial and the non-custodial parent to provide their information, period. They would just submit it separately. That's the only thing. So they will have to go through, the non-custodial parent will have to go through the process of creating an account so that they can do that. And the College Board have instructions on how to do that on their website. So everything is linked together. So just make sure you click on those links and follow the information. And they also have a phone number you can refer to, and I'll share the information later. But they've basically laid everything out. We got you have how-to guides. You have a phone number you can call. Remember, mistakes cost money and opportunities. I want y'all to remember that. Mistakes cost money and opportunities. So if there's something you're unclear about, you're uncertain about, don't guess. Reach out. What did we do yesterday? Reach out and touch. Reach out and touch somebody's hand and make this world a better place if you can. Okay, so I digress, but you're going to reach out and touch, and you're going to get some information before you make a selection and submit anything. All right, because mistakes cost money and yes, opportunity. All right, so yes, absolutely. That's reach out and touch. Now, What if you have a situation where you have, let's see, what I want to call them, a non-participative, non-custodial parent, because we know that exists. So this is typically a parent who does not, the student does not live with them. They may not be as engaged and all that good stuff. They're just kind of ghost, absent, whatever you want to call it. This is where you will fill out the CSS Profile Waiver request for the non-custodial parent. So it is available for you to fill out or provide to the colleges, but understand this again. Each college will look at your waiver. They'll use that information to determine whether or not to waive that requirement. I remember I had a student I was helping at Vanderbilt. He got accepted into Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt covered most of his expenses, and he had a balance. And so the parents were separated and had been separated for a long time, but they never divorced, nor did they put into place, and I can't remember the legal term of the document that Vanderbilt asked for, but they asked for a particular document, and basically it's a legal agreement parents who are legally separated, they will put in place regarding the care of their dependents. Because that document, the legal documents were not in place, he had a very hard time appealing his financial aid and getting more money, because you got to think about this, you guys. They are trying to make sure people aren't trying to game the system. They're not trying to take advantage. So in their mind, again, from a business perspective, if you're not together, then you have some type of legal documentation that states that and state what the terms of agreement, are, what the terms of agreement is between both husband and wife. So just if this is you and you don't have anything legally in place, you probably want to go get something legally in place if you can afford it. If not, just know that this can be problematic with the FAFSA as well as with the CSS profile. And the same thing with family members taking in their students, taking in kids who were relatives. You know, it may be you're raising your sister kids, or a grandparent may be taking care of their grandkids. Not having those legal documents in place, establishing an official guardianship and all those different pieces, it's going to require you to jump through a lot of hoops. It's going to make the process just that much more convoluted, complicated, and it probably more than likely subject you to some auditing as well. So just keep that in mind. Go ahead and get prepared, because that is pretty much what they're looking at. Because again, they're trying to make sure people are not defrauding the system at the end of the day. I understand it. I get it. All right. So I'm just trying to help you understand it so that you can be prepared. All right. So those are the key things I wanted to highlight first. So time is moving. So let's go ahead and just kind of talk about the steps you go through to complete the CSS profile. So I'm going to just kind of run through these. So first, we've already talked about this. The first step is, well, actually, your pre-step is gather all your necessary documents, okay? So you're going to have them ready so that when you go through the application process, it's already there. So tax documents, and of course, you're using the same tax documents you're using for the FAFSA. So any tax documents, any unearned income documents, investment statements, W-2 forms, assets, your bank statements, untaxed income, all those things. Make sure you gather the information so you have it ready. Because remember, it should already be placed in a binder so that you can open it up and provide the level of information. All right, so after you've gathered all your documents, your information, you want to create your College Board account if you don't already have one. So create your College Board account if you don't already have one. And then you want to log in, sign in, and sign in and then initiate the CSS profile application. And so if you need a video walkthrough, if you go to, I believe there's one on the CSS profile page, and then there's several of them out there. And I know there's one on US News. If you look for CSS profile and say US News, you'll find that article. They have a great video as well. You can refer to if you are a visual type of learner, because there's different types of learners: kinesthetic, audible, and visual learners. So refer to that. All right. So after you log in, you got all your information. Now you're going to commence to work through the application. So you're answering the questions, you're filling in the information. Then you're going to get to the place where you select the colleges. So your colleges should already be identified, because this is part of that prep work we talked about on Monday. So you're going to basically select the CSS profile colleges. You're not going to put every college on there. You're only going to put the CSS profile colleges who requires this particular form. So you're going to put the code for those colleges so they are part of your application. After you complete all that information, then you want to submit it. You got to complete the application, and then you are going to submit it. All right. Now, when you do this, make sure you understand with the CSS profile, you will have the opportunity to detail any special circumstances. So we talked about special circumstances yesterday in the process on how you do that as relates to the FAFSA. For the CSS profile, this is different. You're going to have a space designated for you to detail those special circumstances. Okay. So this is a great place for you to describe anything that's not apparent in your tax forms. So, it could be things like, I know this is something that I'm just seeing a lot more people having to deal with. You're caring for a grandparent or caring for a parent, they've taken ill. So you're taking on the expense of nurses and home health care and all those things. That's not going to be documented in any of those documents. So you want to share those special circumstances and any other financial hardships, medical expenses, you name it, anything that's causing a financial hardship. That is your opportunity to detail that information. When you detail this type of information, provide as much detail as possible. I will quantify it. I will put numbers, how much is it costing you each week? Or if you got excessive bills because you can't keep up, I would even talk about that. Hey, we're incurring $20,000 a month. We're only able to cover 5 of that. So we're left with a deficit of 15, and it's just accumulating over time. And so this is where we're at. You want to tell your story. Give them a full view picture of what your financial situation looks like. Okay. That's what you want to do. You got the opportunity to tell the information, share it. You don't have the opportunity to do that on the FAFSA. You will have to do it on the back end through the appeal process. So that's the difference between the two. All right. So provide that information. And like I said, submit the application. So you must pay the fee, or you must enter the fact that you got an approved fee waiver. Okay. So once you do that, there may be more instructions that comes to you once you submit it. That's okay, because we're doing what? We are checking emails on a regular basis. So check emails, verify the information. I'm that person who just like to go the extra mile. Once I submitted whatever that confirmation page is, I'm likely to snapshot it and store it with my files, because if there's an issue, I want to be able to document this is when it was done. I did submit it. I got confirmation of it, and be able to provide that in case there is an issue, so they can do their investigation. But I would do that, and you're tracking your emails, but that's what you're going to continue to monitor. So you'll track your emails, as well as you're going to constantly track your emails and or constantly log back into the College Board website and monitor the dashboard, because that dashboard is what they're going to use to communicate. Hey, we need more information. We need you to verify this. Here are some action items. Here's your receipt. Here's your final submission, all those types of things. So we have to make sure we are checking our emails. All right. So make sure you're doing that. Questions, comments so far? I know it's a lot of information. Just want to make sure everybody's good. Okay. All right. So I'm just looking to see where I want to go next, because I kind of switched it up. All right. So just some things to note as you're completing the application. So some of the things you'll find on remember I said the CSS profile is more detailed in what it's asking. So some things you'll see on it that you will not see on the FAFSA will be the value of your primary home. So that means you want to gather that level. You want to gather that information about your home. Consideration of the regional cost of living are things that they look at. Information about other educational expenses within the family. So if you have multiple kids in college at the same time, if you're in college while your kids are in college, so those are some things they look at, like cost for siblings, private primary or secondary school as well. So if you have kids who aren't in college but they're in private school, those are some of the things they also take into consideration. So just make sure you're providing as accurate account as possible of what things look like. And just note again, if you are separated, never married, never married parents, if you're separated or divorced, just be prepared. It's highly likely that they're going to ask you more questions. Your process is going to be a lot more extensive. Okay. Just keep that in mind. All right. So we talked about fee waiver. The deadlines, you want to make sure, again, you look at what the school deadline is. It also opens on October 1st. That's why we're talking about it, because everything related to financial aid opens on October 1st. Your FAFSA opens, the CSS profile opens. And our goal is for you to get both of them submitted at the same time, around the same time, because what? Early bird gets the worm. We talked about that on Monday. Timing is everything. And you don't want to miss out on the opportunity because you delayed in the process. So just don't delay. Don't miss out. I'm just trying to make sure I have everything covered. Okay. Oh yeah, that's right. I said CSS profile about $35. It's actually $25. So CSS profile is $25. And if you want additional reports, they are $16. So I wanted to correct that because I had a note on that. And just like with the FAFSA, if you made a mistake, that's why it's important to review your information, because mistakes cost what? Money and opportunities. Review your information. If you made a mistake and you've already submitted it, don't submit a new application. Go back and edit. That's what you want to do. Edit, not resubmit a new application. So I wanted to make sure everybody was clear about that, because that's just going to throw everything off and cause more issues in the process. So I want to make sure that is clear. But that is the CSS profile. That's what we were focusing on today, because we wanted to include every and anything as it relates to financial aid. So let me give you just some of the instructions and resources. So like I said, go to the CSS Profile website. So CSS Profile, Charlie, Sam, profile.collegeboard.org. That's where you will go. That's where you go and find out the list of CSS Profile schools and everything else you want to know about the process. If you do have, if your scholar has, or your baby has CSS Profile schools on their list, I highly recommend you going to the site, checking out their help. They have an instructions and help section or something. The title is somewhere like that. But go to that section, download the CSS Profile Student Guide, download the Reporting Parents Guide. They have a tutorial on there. Go through the tutorial. And if there's something you don't understand in that process while you're preparing and or during the time when you are doing your application, the phone number is there too. You can either chat live with somebody or you can call the number, and they have people available from 9 to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. All right. So this is something, if you're doing a CSS profile, the fact that they have people available only during the week, I will probably do my application during that time. So that way you can reach out and touch a valuable and valid resource and get help at that moment versus you're doing it on the weekend. You can't get help. And now you got to wait till the next week start. You can forget, life happens, and now it's delayed another week or two. Delays cost money and opportunities. So be strategic about how you plan this. Put this on your calendar, plan it, and plan everything else around it. Okay. So the website again you are going to go to is charliesam.profile.collegeboard.org. If you don't remember that, our good friend Google Charlie Sam profile, CSS profile, and it'll take you there as well. Okay. So that's CSS profile, everybody. Tomorrow, again, we're going to talk about what to do now that you've submitted your FAFSA. What are those steps? And then we'll just kind of do a Q&A. So that's pretty much all we have for today. I appreciate you all for joining. I appreciate for your participation and your questions. We're going to close out tomorrow. Again, if you missed the first two sessions, listen to the replay. Go ahead and get busy on the homework assignments given in those replays so that you are ready for Friday, October 1st, when the FAFSA and the CSS profile goes live. All right. So get busy, get started, take action. Yes, I know you may lose some sleep. It's a little sacrifice of sleep. But again, delays cost money and opportunities. Mistakes cost money and opportunity. We're not leaving money on the table. So we're getting this knowledge. We're getting this information. We're mapping out our plan of attack on how we're going to get it done. We're getting organized. We're getting prepared. And on that day, we're launching and we're executing and we're getting it done. How many of you with me? So I'm imagining all y'all raising your hands, saying, I'm with you, Coach T. I got it. So I want you to stick to it, stay committed to the process. Because then once you get it done, you submit to us, and I'll share information tomorrow, your completed or confirmation that you completed it. And we're going to enter your names into a drawing, and we're giving out some gift cards. And the grand prize drawing is going to be for a strategy session, a strategy funding session with yours truly on how to maximize aid, what to do. I'm basically going to look at your schools, what you've done so far, I'm going to give you an abbreviated version of what I do with my clients and what I work with them on over the course of 12 months. I'm going to give you an abbreviated version of that within a 2-hour session. That right there is valued at over $2,500. So that is the grand prize, and we're giving that away. We're giving that away for free for those who submit their confirmation of submission of the FAFSA. And so the deadline to submit that information is going to be October 29th, my daddy's 80th birthday. So that is going to be the deadline. I hope to have this contest next year. Well, I can't tell you that. We're going to have, well, actually, in your case, it'll be 2 years, because if they're a 10th grader, because this is only people are completing the FAFSA are going to be parents of high school seniors. So you actually got 2 years to go. So no telling what we'll be doing around that time. So we'll just have to see. But I wasn't going to talk about this. We have one more cohort to onboard this year for our coaching program. Now it's not open to current seniors, but it is open to 8th through 11th graders. So we'll share more information about that a little later. But that's where we at, everybody. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for your support. Tomorrow we'll be back, same bat station, same bat time, with yours truly, the College Prep Boss. Oh, hold on. I saw a question. My child. Oh, it is so. That's a good question. The question is, my child is a freshman at Clark. Can we participate? Well, you know what? I guess I should have clarified that. The contest is really geared at new FAFSA applicants, because that's where we have a decline in the numbers. That's where that we have that gap that we're pretty much tracking in terms of filling the gap. So let me put some thought around that, because the strategy, giving strategic advice for students who are already in college, that's a whole different ball game. Because once you're in college, it's pretty limited on what I can tell you that you can do. There's not a whole lot we can do, because part of how we approach the college for free process, it involves school selection. And so if you're at a school that really wasn't the right school from the maximum financial aid fit, then your options are going to be very limited. And so it's not going to be a whole lot I can really tell you. So let me think about that to see if I want to include existing college students, but this is primarily for parents of high school students who are current seniors. So I'll put some thought to it. If that changes, I'll let you know, because I like to make sure full value is given. And when it comes to college students, we're kind of handcuffed. It's like we're basically trying to look at how to make lemonade out of lemons, and sometimes it's going to be so limiting. There's not a whole lot we can do, and I don't want people to feel like they wasted their time. So let me think about that, and I'll clarify that tomorrow. All right. So see you tomorrow, same bat station, same bat time, with the College Prep Boss. Make sure you share this with other folks. Post your questions. We'll answer your questions tomorrow. We'll answer questions live, and that's pretty much it. So the time to be ready is not the time to get ready. We must always position ourselves to be in a place of readiness so that we can take advantage of opportunities as they come our way without having to get prepared. This is your favorite College for Free coach signing out. Have a great evening, everyone. Stay safe. See you later.